If South Carolina quarterback LaNorris Sellers decides to enter the 2026 NFL Draft, the Los Angeles Rams will be the perfect pairing for him.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parson. I'm an NFL draft analyst with Bleacher Report. That's my guy, Keith Sanchez. He's the director of scouting with the Draft Network and 2019 national champion with the LSU Tigers. And as always, thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. Offensive, defensive prospect pairings, those perfect pairings on today's show. And we got Coach Him Up, where we give the prospect to the coach and say, hey, he's got a high ceiling. He could be an impact player, but you got to do your job. But before we get into that, today's episode it's Crossover Thursday, guys. So Crossover Thursday is presented by Prospects. Download the Prospects app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Keith, I've been alluding to pretty much all week. I want to talk about LaNorris Sellers. Like, man, if he doesn't transfer out, right? There's a lot of smoke about him maybe going to Miami. I mean, I put out there, go out to Iowa, go make yourself go to Iowa. You know what I mean? But, we don't know what he's going to do. But if he does declare for the draft, Keith, I think the perfect spot for LaNorris Sellers, quarterback out of South Carolina with all the tools in the world, is the Los Angeles Rams. Right now, the Rams have, I think, the 8th pick. If the draft were today from the Atlanta Falcons, they have the 8th pick in the draft. Mind you, they're also one of the favorites to win the Super Bowl. So it's a team with 2 first-round picks. Let's say they win the Super Bowl and they have a top 10 pick. Yeah, their team is good. Their team is set. They could go a lot of different directions at 8. But I think adding a LaNorris Sellers to Sean McVay, look, anybody that watched South Carolina know that this is a dysfunctional team, offense, scheme, everything. Taking this toolsy quarterback that is LaNorris Sellers and putting him in a Sean McVay-led offense. Man, I'm telling you right now, I get excited thinking about that, Keith, because you get to learn. I think Matthew Stafford's got at least another year in him. Everybody was worried about the back coming off of training camp. I was like, I wasn't. I felt like this was just an older quarterback who don't want to go through training camp. Not saying that the back wasn't a problem, but I felt like it was a little, it was bloviated a little bit. LaNorris Sellers, 6'3", 204, powerful arm, dynamic runner, powerful runner as well. Being able to sit behind Stafford, be there with McVay, and McVay putting him into that McVay offense. Remember when we talked about Jalen Milroe going to Clint Kubiak's system behind Sam Darnold this year? I was like, I love it. I was like, too many times we take the toolsy raw quarterback or the athletic quarterback and just want to put them in the pistol sets, the shotgun stuff. Like, no, let's get them acclimated to running a West Coast offense where if you master that under center stuff, the pre-snap reads, the play action with the boot action, stuff like that. If we can do that with you, then this other stuff, opening up floodgates and go spread and empty and let you be able to pick your poison or how you want to attack a defense with your legs and stuff like that, it becomes just icing on top of the cake. But I don't want that to be the basis of the only way you're successful. I want you to be successful in running a standard offense. And these guys don't run those offenses in college. So I think putting LaNorris Sellers at 8, I would take him at 8. If he's there, I don't think teams that want a starter out the gate, I don't think they draft for LaNorris Sellers. Even if he's there, Keith, I think the Anthony Richardson thing scares them off. I think they say, no, we'd rather take somebody else. Cool. If I'm Sean McVay, I'm like, I hope you do that. So at pick 8, I can snatch a LaNorris Sellers and get my franchise quarterback of the future to learn from the guy who's carrying our franchise right now.
Yeah, so obviously I always like, and I consistently say this on this podcast, right? When you draft a young guy and you have a talented veteran who's been in the league a very long time, right, to kind of teach him the ropes for at least a year, right? If they could get a 1-year crossover, I feel really good about that. If you could get 2, then great. My question would be this, because I know you say a lot for Kyle Shanahan, DP, that you feel like Kyle Shanahan has a type of quarterback, right? Like that you feel like it's a certain specific type of quarterback and how they approach the game. Do you feel the same way about Sean McVay, and do you feel like LaNorris Sellers is that?
I think McVay is a little bit more open-minded. Like Kyle has always liked I don't want to say it like this, the mediocre quarterback. He loves the solid, don't have a high, the Jimmy Garoppolo's. He traded up to get CJ Beathard, who was, I think he came from Iowa. Like that was an Iowa quarterback I wouldn't stamp. You know what I mean? Jimmy Garoppolo, CJ Beathard, the Mac Joneses of the world. You know, even Brock Purdy to me has probably the best tools out of all the guys he's had because he's got the mobility and he can throw from the pocket and different things like that. But he's always wanted the guys that just run his offense as it's designed. Sean McVay seems a little more who's ever at quarterback I can work with, like, and he's more open to that. So I think LaNorris Sellers would be a guy that he would have a lot of fun just working into his system, because then it also opens up the playbook into, hey, LaNorris, what are the things that you ran in South Carolina that you did like and we can implement into the playbook? He just seems more open-minded to me than Kyle Shanahan.
Yeah. Okay. Well, no, I get that and I understand. I just wanted to ask to see, you know what I'm saying, like a different perspective and angles, because I know a lot of people probably aren't going to make that pairing, but if it works, I think it could be explosive, right? And maybe the first time that Sean McVay has had a mobile quarterback, right? Like, because even
I think so.
I mean, he had Baker Mayfield, but I was like for a couple games towards the back end of the season. But you know, Stetson Bennett, things like that. So it hasn't been a lot of quarterbacks. DP, I'm gonna go this looking at Tankathon, right? And the way the draft currently holds, right? It's Tennessee picking at 1, which don't think they're going to take a quarterback. The New York Giants, if Jackson Dart doesn't start protecting himself, they're going to have to figure out the quarterback.
This man lives on the wild side, I tell you that much.
And he said, "I'm not stopping." Right? The New Orleans Saints, right? The New Orleans Saints picking number 3. I could see them taking a quarterback, but I think they may stand pat this year and choose to address some issues. So the first team that needs a quarterback is the Las Vegas Raiders, right? And it's going to be interesting conversation for QB1, right? And I'm going to tell our listeners that I have a QB1 right now, but probably once we get closer to February, that's when I'll make my final decision and stamp who I'm going to stamp, right? But the quarterback I like to see there is Ty Simpson, DP, with the Las Vegas Raiders. And the reason I say that is because the mental kind of moxie, right, that it takes to turn a franchise around, I think Ty has shown that this year, right? Like he's battle tested, and he just seems like a guy that Tom Brady wouldn't mind mentoring, right? Like he's going to be quiet, listen, and the reason I feel that way, DP, in this day and age, he sat down at Alabama for 4 years before he got his opportunity to play, right? And all of these guys are 5-star quarterbacks coming out, right? So you have to be humbled enough to sit down and be committed and be committed to a process, right? And that's what quarterbacking is. We look at Bryce Young, right? And everybody said Bryce Young too small. It's time to get him out of there. XYZ. And Bryce Young, he isn't doing anything super special, but he's looking like a guy that can be a quarterback of a franchise, right? When, I mean, people are ready to throw him away right after year 2, like, oh, it's completely done. And so this Las Vegas Raiders rebuild is going to take process, and it's going to take somebody that has to be mentally tough, mentally strong, and like, you know what, I've been through tough times before, and I believe that with Ty Simpson. Like I said, sitting on the bench at Alabama, then, you know, watching from the sideline last year, thinking that you potentially could do better, right? And then going through the toughness that the tough schedule that they had to go through this year, right? Playing in the SEC and all of those different games, and even losing games week 1, and everybody wanting to fire everybody that's associated with Alabama football, right? So I trust the toughness of Ty Simpson. Like, you know what, if you keep giving him enough cracks at this, he's going to get it figured out.
Yeah, and I think for him, he has a even stronger case than Bryce. Bryce had a lot of playmakers. He was at Bama. Right now, right, you know, after seeing 17-year-old Ryan Williams play and then seeing them at 18, he was like, what in the world happened? Like, you know what I mean? He's like a total different guy that should not catching passes. And Jeremy Bernard, solid day 2 prospect. But is he a game-changing type of receiver? No. So it's like he's not, when you're talking about John Mechie and Jameson Williams and then having a Jahmyr Gibbs, like, dear God, who in the world is coming out of that backfield that that you're worried about at Alabama? So, like, when people see, man, Auburn gave him a tough time, I'm like, yeah, like, this offense isn't star-studded, in the premier position situation. So, no, I like that. And I think with Ashton Genty, Brock Bowers, I think Dante Thornton Jr., hoping that, he could take that step forward. They got Trey Tucker. They just got to get some offensive linemen to help protect him.
Yeah,
We've seen what's
thing.
happening to Geno Smith. Like, they just leaving Geno back to the die for their sins, just like getting hit all the time. If you can protect and probably keeping Geno, I wouldn't get rid of Geno. I would let Geno still be there, be the starter, and then let, Ty watch Geno. And Geno's not a locker room cancer. He's a guy that's a leader in that locker room, so he could be able to get and prepare this young man for the future. I like that pairing a lot, Keith.
Yeah, and I didn't even mention head coach Pete Carroll, right? And how he's a rah-rah guy and high energy. Yeah. I think he's another guy that would gravitate towards Ty Simpson's personality and how he goes about things. But DP, that was offensive pairings, man. And then we both pick quarterbacks. We both pick franchises that need quarterbacks in the future, right? Let's switch sides of the football. Let's talk about defensive prospect pairings, right? We're going to pick the team. We're going to pick the prospect and say why this is a mutually beneficial situation. We're going to talk about that coming up next.
This episode is brought to you by Prospects. The holiday season is one of the best times for sports. Bowl games, big basketball matchups, playoff pushes. It's all happening at once. And while we're all making choices every day, one of the most fun places to make the right call is Prospects. Prospects is the easiest way to get in on daily fantasy. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player projections, lock in your lineups, and you're in the game. It's simple, fast, and available in 45 states, including California, Texas, Florida, and Georgia. Prospects has added an extra layer of excitement to the holiday sports schedule. So download the Prospects app today and use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prospects. It's good to be right. Defensive prospect pairings, Keith. I got a fun one here. This team, I think, is currently 7-5. Didn't expect them the season to go the way it's going right now. The Detroit Lions. I said this entering last year's draft, and they didn't listen to me. Brad Holmes, I need you to listen to me now. Like, you put all your eggs in the pass rush basket of Aidan Hutchinson. Not, offensive linemen, they slide protection. They take the top guy away. Who's next up in the pecking order to get sacks for you? I think it should be David Bailey out of Texas Tech. Transfer, what was he at? Stanford, transfer from Stanford to Texas Tech.
Yep.
And I think he's leading. I think he is leading the country in sacks this year. And we'll talk about their game this weekend against BYU and everything for the Big 12 championship game. Definitely a spotlight player you got to keep your eyes on from number 31 when Texas Tech's defense is on the field. But imagine, if you're a Jordan Love, you're a, let's say, J.J. McCarthy, even a Caleb Williams on 3rd and 10, fourth quarter, you need to convert, 4th and 10, whatever. And it's a true drop back situation. And not only do you have to worry about Aidan Hutchinson, but you got to worry about David Bailey off the other opposite edge. Like, that's what this defense, I think secondary wise, and plus they play a lot of man. Kelvin Shepard wants to play man coverage. So they play man, but you don't have the pass rush to benefit the man coverage. So, of course, if you can nullify or slow down Aidan, your quarterback has some time in the pocket. And one thing you know about playing man coverage, Keith, is you can't cover forever in man coverage. Like, it's just you don't want your receivers back there for 5 or 6 seconds downfield trying to stay attached to a receiver. You want to be able to force that quarterback to get the ball out of his hands as quickly as possible. I think adding David Bailey, he's a type of guy that would fit that Dan Campbell type of mentality, that hardworking, tough, gritty guy. Get him upfield. Him and Aidan Hutchinson will be probably one of the best young pass rushing duos in the league. They got to get somebody opposite of Aidan Hutchinson, and I think David Bailey would be perfect for him.
Yeah, I mean it's about time, right? And
Right.
GM Brad Holmes, he's done a great job going with his move, right? As far as he's critical of the Jack Campbell,
Right.
critical
Yeah.
people think about this 3-4 years later. Everybody got mad with him when he drafted Jahmyr Gibbs,
It
right?
gives.
And plenty of other picks, right? And even I'll give him credit, was that last year's draft, I believe, the year before last. Natarian Arnold and Ennis
Yeah.
Rakestraw, right? Both of those were good man-to-man corners, right? Like, but it just hasn't panned out, right? Like, and I think he chose to address the back end and not the front end, right? So I agree with your process this time. Like, listen, if you get I'm not sure of the current status within this Rakestraw, but if you get him, you get Terrion on to turn the corner, then you have two solid corners, right? And then you address the pass rush situation because it flat out it just needs to be addressed. And I think this what am I trying to say? This recipe, right? This equation, this formula, however you want to say it, has shown that it doesn't equal winning a Super Bowl, meaning
Right.
that putting all of it on Aidan Hutchinson and having one pass rusher doesn't work. You have to find some other duality type of situation where it's more than one person getting after the quarterback. It's more than one person making plays. So I like that. And I even say with the secondary, I mean, I like the safety position, right? To have Kirby Joseph combined with Brian Branch. Like, that's a really good safety combination. You're talking about two ball hawks and two guys that complement each other. But the cornerback position and the edge rusher position is a position that no doubt needs to be addressed overall. DP, I'm gonna look at
Real
this.
quick, Keith, I
Go
want
ahead.
to add some numbers to it real quick.
Yeah,
The
go ahead.
Detroit Lions, was it right now? They're ranked 10th per NFLPro.com. They are ranked 10th with like 32 sacks, and I wouldn't be surprised if majority of those came from Aidan Hutchinson. So like they need to, you know what I mean? Like they absolutely need to improve that pass rush because right now the way that the Bears are trending, this is only year 2 for Caleb, and this is the first year in Ben Johnson's offense. If this is what it looks like in year 1 with Ben Johnson, man, I don't know what it's going to look like in year 3 or 4 when him and Caleb are like firing on all cylinders. You better get another pass rusher in there if you're Detroit.
Yeah, I'm with that. I'm gonna go with this, DP. I'm gonna go with, and they're probably gonna have to do some moving up the board because I think the New York Jets have pick. I think it's pick 7, and they have the Indianapolis Colts pick now, pick 23, right? It currently stands. I would try to get my hands on, if I'm the New York Jets, get my hands on Cassius Howell. And I know that you have to draft a quarterback too, but this may be the draft where you try to pull the Houston Texans, where you go get a franchise quarterback and then you go get the edge rusher too, right? Or vice versa. I forgot which way they pulled that off as far as the trade.
Yeah,
The
they were
Houston Texans.
quarterback, traded back up and got Will Anderson.
Okay, that's what it was. Yeah, so I think they should try to do both, DP. Because this is I'm not sure if they're going to wipe the slate clean as far as a new head coach and everything else, but you need to start over in a sense, right? And you need some fresh blood in there. You need some new energy. You need some high energy guys that you trust as far as draft prospects, right? And you need what they quote unquote call premium positions. You need an edge rusher, somebody to go sack the quarterback. You no longer have Quentin Williams, who's one of your best pass rushers from the interior defensive line position, right? And then you need a quarterback also. So you have 2 first-round picks. So I think it's a matter of moving and matriculating. And then also, I believe in 2027, right? They have another maybe
3?
2, 2 or 3.
I think it's 3.
Yeah, it might be 3 first-round picks. So if you like the edge rusher, if you like the quarterback, I say this is the draft. You go ahead and move up and down the draft board to get your hands on a quarterback, but also get your hands on an edge rusher like a Cassius Howell.
Yeah, I think offense, looking at the Jets, man, if Adonai Mitchell can hit the ground running and play the way he played, I'm not saying you got to have an average 100 yards a game, but the way he played last Sunday, like that's the Adonai Mitchell that he has literally everything, like speed, size, route running, ball skills, body control. Like
the thing is, he doesn't have to be number 1 either, right? He's the number 2, and then I like this the wide receiver core that they currently have, DP.
I wouldn't add nothing to it. Honestly.
Yeah, Garrett Wilson, AD Mitchell, and
John Mechie.
And John Mechie. that's a solid wide receiver core. Like that's a wide receiver core that if you have a good quarterback, you could get some things done. Maybe I would want to add some size, right? Like if you're talking about in the draft, like maybe like a Malachi Fields or a Denzel Boston, maybe somebody a little bit bigger, like, you know, that fits the prototype X. But those three wide receivers standing alone, that's not a bad wide receiver room. That's actually a pretty solid to good wide receiver room.
And that's why I think for them, like if they were to, I mean, right now they're like what, 6 maybe or something like that, 6 or 7 or whatever the case may be.
7, yeah.
7 because they won on Sunday. Yeah, I think if they want to go get a quarterback, they might have to definitely package up and move up to go get. I think I think adding a Fernando Mendoza or Ty Simpson or one of these top, even Dante Moore if he came out, one of these top quarterbacks, adding them to that receiving core. Yeah, because I feel like at the end of the day, we seeing Tyrod Taylor elevate this passing offense, and him in that connection with AD, they have the weapons now, like that you feel, and they're young. All of them are young. So yeah, if you want to go get your quarterback, go get your quarterback. I think adding that edge rusher, because I think Jermaine Johnson's coming up on a contract year. Well, I think this is a contract year for him, and he was coming off of, I think, a torn ACL last year. Yeah, like adding another edge rusher would be big for him, man. They have to rebuild. Crazy that they have to rebuild this defense entirely. You traded Sauce Gardner, you traded Quinnen Williams. We don't know, like I said, we don't know if they're going to bring back a Jermaine Johnson. They have some holes on this defense, right? And I think you have all the draft capital you have. Yeah, don't be afraid to get aggressive and go get the guy you want.
Yep. Well, DP, when it's the game ball segment, I tell you, get your hat and get your whistle, right? Get prepared to get in the locker room. But when it's the coach 'em up segment, I tell you, get your suit and tie, right? It might be a nice blazer, right? With a nice Rolex on your arm, because we're about to play general manager. We're about to play general manager. We're going to pick the prospect. We're going to hand them to the coach and say, listen, this guy has all the physical tools that you need and to be a top tier player in the NFL. And we're going to hand them to the coach and say, listen, coach this guy up. So coming up next, coach 'em up segment.
Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and everyday. Shout out for being our everydays, and thank you for being part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network in America, all because of you guys, our everydayers. It's time for Coach 'em Up. Keith, I look at this situation, I was like, man, who should I pick for Coach 'em Up? And it's a guy we both like, Zachariah Brandt, wide receiver out of Georgia. And I want an NFL team to take this young man who is listed at 5'10", 180 pounds. Arguably, I think he's going to hit sub 4.4, 4 in the 4.3s, maybe 4.2, but I think definitely 4.3s. He's electric. He's dynamic. He's explosive. One of the most explosive playmakers with the football in his hands in college football. And Georgia still seems like they don't know what to do with him. So for me, I want my NFL team. I want my head coach. I'm drafting him. And I'm saying, listen, we know what he could do in the manufacturer stuff. We know what he could do out in space. We know he could do all that stuff. Let's use him as a true wide receiver, right? I go back to what NC State did with shout out to Casey Concepcion, right? Shout out to him. If he stayed at NC State and they used him the same way they were using him prior to him transferring, he probably isn't getting any first-round buzz because he's not being showcased as a true wide receiver.
He's still in that gadget role type.
Exactly. And that's what Georgia's doing to Zachariah Branch. And I do think that he offers more than that, but we don't get to see that because they don't use him as that.
Because we've seen it at USC.
Correct. So it's like for me, and don't get me wrong, there's flashes of they let him line up in the slot and run some routes. And I'm like, okay, there we go. But there's very far for you between reps. So you like, there's a slant or there's an out route. Mostly it's bubble screens, wide receiver screens, just stuff behind or at the line of scrimmage. NFL coach, I'm telling my coach, implement him into our offense. Let this dude be a big-time playmaker for us. I'm putting him in the slot. I want him in the slot, give him that two-way go, and wreak havoc, especially on crossers, slot fades, vertical shots, things like that. I know I can run all that gadget stuff with him when we need to. We can get the orbit motion going, line him up in the backfield. I can Randall Cobb him and get him matched up on linebackers and safeties. But let's use him as a wide receiver, because I feel like he does have more route run. I'll never forget when Marvin Mims came out. I remember because the clip's probably still up on my Twitter. He said, yeah, coming out of OU, I wasn't asked to run a lot of routes. I can run more routes, but I wasn't asked to. So for me, it's like, hey, Zachariah Branch, let's get you into training camp. Let's see what routes you can run well. And let's work on expanding that route tree, something that Georgia hasn't done for you.
Yeah, no, and I'm a fan of Zachariah Branch, right? I think that in conversations is much like the Xavier Worthy thing, is that he can do a lot more than just running the straight line fast or be used in
100%.
certain screen type situation. My guy DP, I'm gonna go with, I'm pretty sure I didn't pick him before, but I know we discussed him for sure in this podcast quickly. But I think it was pertaining to something else. But I'm gonna go with Tennessee wide receiver Chris Brazzell. Listed at 6'5", 200 pounds. He just cracked the 1,000-yard mark, right, to finish the season. 62 receptions, 9 touchdowns, right? Like that's a pretty solid stat line across the board. And I'll go aggressive to say, DP, what I see on film, I think this young man can place himself to be a top 2-round pick, right? Early day 2, maybe back in the first round when you talk about the size and look like he has really good speed, because I see him separating from people, but ability to sink his hips in and out of breaks, right? And the other part is 6'5". There are times he plays like he's 6'5". He'll go up and go get the football over defenders. So I'm looking at this situation, and I don't want to compare him directly, right? Because this is he's the belle of the ball right now. Talking about George Pickens, right? Everybody talks about George Pickens, but George Pickens, and I think I said this before too, is that George Pickens was more rigid than what Chris Brazzell was coming out, and I think that he has a lot there. So I'm looking at the coach. I'm saying, listen, we take a swing on this young man. I'm gonna draft him. You coach him up, and we may have a X-ish type of wide receiver, right? Somebody we could push the ball vertical to, but then somebody that can also work some short to intermediate things. A really good complementary piece. And the other guy I thought of, and it's interesting. We'll see how his career continues to unfold. But TCU wide receiver Quentin Johnston, and how he's starting to turn the corner some, right, as a wide receiver. Chris Brazzell, in my opinion, may be more confident in his hands. I think he's more confident in going to attack the football. So if you talk about a slightly elevated or just a purely elevated Quentin Johnston, then where does that land you? But I think this is a talented wide receiver.
No, 100%. I think I have a second round grade on him right now. Like he's playing good ball. He's played good ball all season. And I think even when you talk about like with Quentin Johnston, UJ started the season out hot, like, and then he got hurt. You know what I mean? Like he ended up getting hurt, and then he was like the first 4 games, he was averaging over 70 yards per game, and he had 4 touchdowns. Like he was outpacing.
They were
making
they were making a concerted effort to get him the football, and he was catching it, right? He was. I thought this was the turn in the corner, but also you look at the Los Angeles Chargers in totality. That's been the story of their season. Everybody being hurt, right? Started with Rashawn Slater, and then Joe Alt, and then defensive players hurt, and then Quentin Johnston injured. So I mean, I think Justin Herbert has to have surgery on his wrist.
He just had his surgery on his left hand. I don't know what's going on. They need to get some what's the stuff that people light and they try to get all the
sage.
They're gonna get some sage or something going over there because it's some bad juju, man. They got some bad juju over there with those injuries. But I think that's what ended up happening when the O-line injuries started happening. Now you're telling now Justin Herbert can't just drop back and wait for the deep ball, because they was taking the top off the defense with Quentin Johnston early in the season, man. And the defense said, you know what, we're gonna play too high. We're not letting him take over the game like he was doing early in the season. So I like that kind of. I didn't think about QJ. I don't think about Chris Brazzell, but I like that a lot because you get the speed, you get the size that could play in the slot, out wide, and then both of them were better route runners for their size than people actually anticipated. So the 100%, I think that he, like I said, I got a second round grade on him. He's a top 5 receiver, I think, for me right now. And somebody's gonna get a ball player with him. Somebody's gonna get a guy that can consistently take the top off the defense, win contested catch situations. But also, he can route some guys up. If you just worry about the speed, he's got enough tempo and variance with his speed and altering it to be able to route you up as well.
DP, this And we say, and I'm gonna continue to say, and I'll probably say it another 10 times over this entire draft. This wide receiver class is the running back class from last year. You will end up with a 5th round, 6th round pick that's going to be a starter for you, and it's going to be very productive. And everybody, and then we're going to fast forward to the NFL season, and everybody like, how is this 6th round pick so productive? Like this wide receiver class.
Think about Torrey Horton in Seattle. Like, they brought in Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp was supposed to be the wide receiver 2 for JSN, and then especially early in the season, it was Torrey Horton that was the one you capitalized. Okay, you want to double JSN? I got the speed and route running ability and ball tracking to make those plays. So they got Elijah Arroyo, our guy out of Miami. They set themselves up on day 2 they got their franchise receiver. Let's go get us a tight end, get us another wide receiver. I think this is, like you said, this is definitely the class. Somebody's going to definitely draft a starter that's going to pop out of nowhere. I'm like, man, he went day 3. How was that possible? I was like, well, did you see the receiver class he was in?
Yep, 100% with DP. That wraps up another episode, man, of the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I want to end this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day. I am Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at The Talent Code. That right there is my guy, my co-host, Mr. Damian Parson. You can find him on X at DP_NFL. And like we like to say, man, y'all come talk to us because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts, to get the latest episode as soon as it is available. It is championship weekend in college football, which means we got to break down all of the action on tomorrow's show and tell you why Fernando Mendoza might have the biggest spotlight out of all prospects in championship weekend. So come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.